there was a point where he was delusional and having kind of episodes that were drug related, but brushes with the law and flirting with kind of homelessness and it was unsustainable. He'd been through rehab a couple of times unsuccessfully, and looked like it was just getting worse.
For years, Ron Howard seemed like the one Hollywood legend who somehow dodged all that behind-the-scenes chaos. Always calm, always smiling, always looking like the perfect example of a child star who made it big without losing himself. The golden boy turned master director. His career spoke louder than any gossip could. But what the cameras didn't catch was the quiet storm he carried inside. The thoughts he never said out loud, the memories he kept locked away while the world saw nothing but perfection. Now, after the heartbreaking passing of Rob Reiner, the entertainment world feels shaken to its core. And suddenly, Ron's silence is breaking in ways no one expected. What he's been saying lately has everyone talking, and not just a little. He's revealing what really goes on in Hollywood. The silent rivalries, the unspoken emotions, and the deep respect that doesn't always make it into the spotlight. Rob's passing clearly hit Ron hard, stirring something deep that's been buried for years. It's got him reflecting on how fragile it all is. How one moment you're on top, and the next, everything shifts. Even the brightest stars, the ones who seem untouchable, carry stories that are way more complicated than fans ever imagine. And what's got people buzzing is just how personal all this feels. Ron's words aren't just grief, they're confession, nostalgia, and maybe even a little regret all mixed together. For the first time in decades, Ron Howard's calm, polished shell is cracking, and his words carry serious weight. He's dropping hints about moments and emotions tied directly to Rob Reiner, and fans are realizing there was way more to their connection than anyone ever knew. People thought they just shared screen history, but it's starting to look like their bond ran much deeper. Now, the story of Ron Howard, born March 1st, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma, suddenly feels heavier than ever. Before fame even made sense, his world was built around acting, art, and discipline. His parents, actor Rance Howard and actress Jean Spiegel, raised him in a home where creativity ruled, but structure was the law. It was long hours, unpredictable days, and a steady mix of magic and madness. The real Hollywood formula. That's the same world that molded him, and the same one that tied him to people like Rob Reiner in ways that only those who lived it could ever understand. And what he's revealing now might seriously change how the world sees both of them forever. Before most kids could even string together full sentences, Ron was already standing under the blinding heat of studio lights. At just 18 months old, he appeared in Frontier Woman, without even knowing that tiny moment would set his entire life in motion. That single baby-sized role kicked off a lifelong bond with the camera, one he could never really escape, even if he wanted to. By the late 1950s, the Howard family packed up and headed west to California, chasing the growing dream of television fame. From that moment on, normal life was basically gone. Dinner tables turned into script stations, and Ron's dad balanced military duties with helping his son land audition after audition. While other kids were out riding bikes and scraping knees, little Ron was learning lines, hitting marks, and living under studio lights instead of sunshine. His playground wasn't the park. It was sound stages, filled with spotlights and cameras. That early grind shaped him into the legend he'd become, but also left him with a story way more complicated than anyone ever guessed. Years later, Ron would look back on those early days and call them a golden cage, shiny, safe, but painfully lonely. Everything sparkled around him, yet it all felt strangely hollow. He had the comfort of fame and stability, sure, but he was locked inside a world run entirely by adults, missing out on those simple, messy moments every normal kid got to live. Then came the big turning point, October 3rd, 1960, the day the Andy Griffith Show premiered, and 6-year-old Ron Howard instantly became America's favorite kid. Overnight, he turned into little Opie Taylor, the face of innocence, the wholesome image every family adored. But behind that polished smile was a quiet boy sitting in a tiny studio classroom, finishing his homework while real laughter and play drifted in from outside. The world saw joy, but Ron was living something completely different. His father did everything he could to protect him from the Hollywood machine, fighting for better scripts, keeping him humble, and drilling one rule into his head: never act cute, just act honest. That single line shaped Ron's entire creative heart. It taught him truth over show, real emotion over performance. But even with that strong guidance and love, there was still that deep ache, the feeling of being adored by millions on screen, yet barely knowing who he really was when the cameras shut off. And somewhere in that swirl of fame and pressure, another young dreamer was climbing the same ladder. Rob Reiner. Both of them were learning how success can lift you high and still trap you in a box. The lights, the scripts, the constant eyes watching. It wasn't just attention, it was a weight. Being America's son might have looked perfect, but when the lights dimmed, the silence hit hard. That quiet anxiety didn't fade. It built up over the years, slowly shaping who Ron Howard would become. Now looking back decades later, Ron admits something that hits deep. Those childhood wounds never really healed. They followed him into adulthood, shaping how he saw fame, family, and even people like Rob Reiner, who knew that same strange mix of admiration and isolation all too well. The two shared more than an industry. They shared a silent understanding of what it costs to grow up in front of the world. When Ron stepped into his teenage years, everyone saw success, but behind that smile was a young man carrying the emotional load of someone twice his age. When the Andy Griffith Show finally wrapped in April 1968, Ron was just 14 years old, 8 full seasons of living in a perfectly written world that wasn't real, surrounded by caring adults who felt like family, yet missing out on the chaos and freedom that real teenage life brings. The mistakes, the rebellion, the late-night laughter, all the messy moments that shape who you are. He barely got a taste of that. His education was split in two. Half spent in real classrooms in Burbank, and the other half squeezed between takes with tutors standing beside rolling cameras. While Grips moved equipment inches from his desk, he was solving math problems. His lunches weren't with kids his age in a cafeteria. They were with Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, and the stage crew. Those moments were full of warmth and love, but also a reminder that he was living in two worlds at once, adored by millions, yet never truly part of the one he wished he could experience. Then came that unforgettable moment during The Music Man in 1962, the kind of story that says everything about who Ron Howard really was. He was only 8 years old, standing on set, trying to nail a dance scene that just wasn't clicking. His tiny face tightened with panic, and he finally turned to Shirley Jones and whispered, "I can't do it, Shirley." She gently reassured him, helping calm his nerves, while the crew quickly adjusted the cameras to shoot him from the knees up, hiding every little misstep like pros. On screen, the audience saw confidence, sweetness, and charm. But inside, Ron was a mess of fear and pressure, trying to hold it all together. That moment captures so much, a kid smiling for the world while quietly battling the weight of perfection. And it's stories like that that make Ron's deep empathy for Rob Reiner hit even harder. Both men grew up in the same strange glow, the spotlight that gives and takes at the same time. Both had fathers steering their paths. Both learned early that behind every perfect take, there's a child just trying to breathe. Those quiet anxieties never really left Ron. They just learned to hide behind that calm, polite smile everyone knew so well. He became a master at performing confidence, even when he didn't feel an ounce of it. That skill turned into his secret armor in Hollywood, helping him navigate the egos, the chaos, and the sky-high expectations that crush so many young stars. While guys like Rob Reiner made waves by being loud, fearless, and outspoken, Ron played it cool. He was the watcher, the listener, studying everyone around him with that sharp, steady focus that became his trademark. Then, in 1974, came the next big twist in his story: Happy Days. 19-year-old Ron walked into Gary Marshall's office, not realizing he was about to step right back into America's heart again. As Richie Cunningham, he became the ultimate good boy next door. Polite, loyal, charming, the symbol of everything wholesome. Fans fell in love instantly. But for Ron, behind that smile, it started to feel like déjà vu, another box, another image that kept him trapped. As the show exploded in popularity, he could feel the walls closing in again. The role that made him adored also made him invisible. By 1977, he was 23. A grown man still pretending to be a high school kid while the whole world outside was changing fast. There were protests, cultural shifts, new voices rising everywhere. But Richie Cunningham stayed stuck in a dream version of the past. That disconnect started eating at Ron. He wanted something real, something that matched what was happening beyond the set lights. So one day, he took a bold step. He wrote a memo to ABC, asking if they could include a single storyline about the Vietnam War, something honest, something that reflected the world real people were living in. But the answer came back fast. No, his request was shut down without hesitation. That rejection hit him deep. It didn't spark anger. It sparked something quieter, heavier, a deep frustration that turned into exhaustion. He began to realize he wasn't living as himself anymore. He was living as someone else's idea of who he should be. That moment of realization, the one that pushed Ron Howard from actor to filmmaker, was the same kind of awakening Rob Reiner would later go through too. Both men were chasing something deeper, something real, in an industry that loved to trap them in time. Forever, the good boys of Hollywood. Directing wasn't just another career move for Ron, it was his escape hatch, his way to finally breathe again after years of being told how to act, what to say, and exactly who to be. Getting behind the camera felt like breaking out of a cage. For the first time, he wasn't just in the story, he was creating it. All those years of smiling for the lens, of following other people's visions, had built up something inside him, a need to tell his own truth. That hunger for authenticity was something he shared with Rob Reiner, who would also go on to find his real voice through directing. And even though their public images couldn't have been more different, Ron, calm and calculated, Rob, bold and outspoken, both were driven by that same fire to control their own destinies. Then came the big break that changed everything. It was 1977, and legendary producer Roger Corman made Ron an offer he couldn't resist: star in Eat My Dust, and in return, direct his very own film. This wasn't about chasing fame or another paycheck. This was about ownership. Finally having the power to call the shots and shape something that felt his. That film became Grand Theft Auto, a wild, fast-paced car crash comedy that he co-wrote with his father, Rance Howard. The budget? Just $62,000. Pocket change by Hollywood standards. But what they pulled off with it was insane. They wrecked around 70 cars, pulled off massive stunts, and somehow turned that small gamble into over $15 million at the box office. For the first time ever, Ron felt real creative control, the kind that acting had never given him. It was thrilling, intoxicating, and empowering all at once. That rush of freedom became addictive. But in Hollywood, freedom always has a price. Every film started to feel personal. Every choice mattered too much. Ron poured everything into his work, obsessing over every frame, every scene, every note from the studio. He carried every success and every failure on his shoulders like it was a reflection of who he was. Then came the hits. Night Shift in 1982, Splash in 1984, Cocoon, Willow, Parenthood. Each one bigger, bolder, and more ambitious than the last. His name became a stamp of reliability, a promise of quality, but with every success came that heavy, invisible pressure, the kind that doesn't go away when the cameras stop rolling. Studios started trusting him completely, expecting him to deliver gold every single time. No excuses. By the early 90s, Ron Howard wasn't the kid from Mayberry anymore. He was a Hollywood heavyweight, a director with real pull. His name carried serious weight in the business, but with that power came something darker, the kind of spotlight that doesn't just shine, it burns if you're not careful. Ron's obsession with control and perfection wasn't about ego, not at all. It was about proving something to himself. After a lifetime of being molded by others, he was determined to show the world, and maybe even prove to that little boy from the Andy Griffith Show, that he could create his own path, his own truth, and his own kind of magic. That same unstoppable drive, the one that made Ron Howard chase perfection, also gave him a deep understanding of what other powerhouse directors like Rob Reiner were going through behind the camera. The endless nights, the pressure to deliver brilliance every single time, and the quiet exhaustion that no one ever sees. The world sees success, trophies, red carpets. But behind it all, it's pure grind, stress, and sleepless obsession. Then came 1995, the year that nearly broke Ron and defined him forever. Apollo 13 wasn't just another movie. It was a mission, a full-blown test of willpower and truth. Ron wasn't just directing a story, he was living it. He wanted to capture every ounce of realism, no shortcuts, no Hollywood faking, no dramatized nonsense, just raw, human truth. He took authenticity to insane levels. The crew filmed over 612 zero-gravity sequences aboard NASA's infamous Vomit Comet, the same aircraft astronauts used for training. Each burst of weightlessness lasted only 23 seconds, meaning Ron had to plan every shot with insane precision. Nothing was left to chance. And instead of movie props, he demanded real NASA tech. They built mission control from scratch using actual panels, each bought for just $1. Every button, every flicker, every light had to be perfect. Nothing less was acceptable. But chasing perfection has a cost, and Ron was about to pay it. He was running 18-hour days, 7 days a week, barely sleeping, pouring himself into every detail. He refused to simplify even the most complex science for the audience, because to him, truth mattered more than comfort. But the human body can only take so much. One morning, it all caught up to him. His body gave out, just stopped. Ron collapsed right there on set from severe exhaustion and dehydration. Chaos broke out, and the entire production had to shut down for a day and a half while he recovered. When he finally returned, pale, tired, but still determined, his cast and crew met him with a surprise that nearly brought him to tears. They were all wearing shirts that read, "Mission Control." It was their way of saying, "We've got you, Ron. We'll follow you anywhere." That moment hit him hard. He smiled, that soft, calm, humble smile everyone knows. But deep down, he felt the sting of truth. He'd gone too far. The line between passion and self-destruction had completely blurred, and he'd crossed it without even realizing. That was the breaking point, the moment he finally understood something Rob Reiner had faced too, that sometimes the cost of brilliance is losing sight of yourself. The very thing that makes you great can quietly drain everything else away, your peace, your health, even your relationships. Ron had turned into the kind of perfectionist who could push himself past the edge and not even see it happening. That haunting truth stuck with him for years, not just because of what it did to his body, but because of what it took from the people who mattered most. The sleepless nights, the missed moments, the quiet distance that forms when your whole life revolves around getting it right. Those painful lessons about control, truth, and obsession reshaped how Ron saw Hollywood forever. He finally understood the real cost of chasing greatness too hard, the price that every creative mind eventually faces when their passion becomes their battlefield. So when the heartbreaking news of Rob Reiner's passing hit, it wasn't just grief that washed over Ron Howard. It was something far heavier. It wasn't just losing a friend, it was staring right into the mirror of everything he'd lived through. What he felt went beyond sadness. It was regret, reflection, and the painful understanding of what relentless ambition quietly takes from you when you're not paying attention. Both men had walked through the same creative fire, chasing perfection, pushing limits, and sacrificing pieces of themselves in the name of art. They both knew how easily passion could slip into isolation, how the same drive that fuels you can also leave you standing alone when the lights fade. But even before Rob's loss, Ron had already carried his own heartbreak, one that still sits in his chest like a shadow that won't fade. It was 1991, a year that looked perfect from the outside. His career was exploding, his name was gold in every studio, and his creative freedom was higher than ever. His daughter Jocelyn had just been born, the family was growing, and everything looked picture perfect. But looks can lie. And this was the year that quietly broke him in ways no one saw coming. Universal Studios had just announced a 6-month shoot in Ireland for Far and Away. It was a dream project, epic, romantic, huge in scale, and Ron was the man in charge. He told himself he could handle the distance, that it was just a few months away from home, so he left. Cheryl, his devoted wife, stayed behind raising their newborn twins and their little girl, Bryce Dallas Howard. Meanwhile, Ron was across the ocean, buried in rewrites, fighting bad weather, and drowning in studio demands that never seemed to stop. Every night, he told himself it was worth it, that all the long hours, the distance, the sacrifices would someday pay off. But deep down, something inside him knew he was drifting too far. When he finally came home, the silence hit him like a wall. The laughter that used to fill the house felt distant, unfamiliar. The connection, that warmth, had faded into something cold. That's when it hit him. Success had come at a cost he never wanted to pay. That regret, that missed time, that emotional gap became a weight he carried for years. And maybe that's why Rob Reiner's story cut so deep, because it mirrored a pain Ron already knew too well. When Ron walked through that front door after 6 long months away, the moment that greeted him nearly broke him in two. His baby daughter, Jocelyn, didn't recognize him. Bryce, his older girl, barely reacted. And Cheryl, the woman who'd held everything together, looked exhausted in a way words couldn't even describe. Years later, in 2025, Ron finally admitted that memory shattered something inside him. That was the moment he realized the harshest truth of all. All the fame, all the success, all the awards meant absolutely nothing if it cost him the people he loved most. That night, he made himself a promise, a quiet vow. Never again. Never again would he disappear into his work like that. Never again would his career take more than it gave. But life doesn't always let promises stick, especially in Hollywood. Fast forward to 2005, during the brutal reshoots for Cinderella Man. That same dangerous pattern started creeping back into his life. The sleepless nights, the endless calls, the obsessive perfection, it all returned like a ghost he thought he'd buried. Ron was gone for months again, swallowed up by production chaos. And when he finally came home this time, he realized his kids had grown, not just in height, but in life. They'd changed, evolved, matured, all while he was away chasing another masterpiece. Cheryl, as always, had kept everything standing strong, holding the house, the family, the rhythm of their world together with her quiet resilience. But Ron could see it now. She was carrying more than her share, more than she ever should have had to. Later, he would confess that this second slip was the wake-up call he couldn't ignore. It forced him to face something buried deep, something that had been there since childhood. That same old pattern of putting performance before peace, of chasing approval before connection, had followed him all his life. From that little boy on the Andy Griffith Show to the award-winning director commanding sets worth millions, Ron Howard had been fighting the same battle all along. Ron Howard had always carried one heavy belief, that he had to say yes to everything, that to stay relevant, to keep proving himself, he had to give 110% every single time. He thought that was the price of greatness, to outwork, outlast, and outperform everyone else. That hunger for perfection drove him to the top, but it also filled him with guilt. The higher he climbed, the more he realized how much of himself he'd left behind. It wasn't until 2025, his and Cheryl's 50th wedding anniversary, that Ron finally dropped his guard completely. Standing on the grounds of John Burroughs High School, the same place where he first met Cheryl, he dedicated a bench in her honor. The crowd gathered expecting a few sweet words, maybe a memory or two. But what Ron said next left everyone frozen in silence. He confessed that if he could trade every single award, every hit film, every ounce of Hollywood success, he would do it in a heartbeat, just to get back the lost time with his kids. That raw, emotional moment peeled back every layer of the legend and showed the man underneath. The father, the husband, the soul who finally realized what truly mattered. And maybe that's exactly why Rob Reiner's passing cut so deep for him. When the headlines hit, it didn't just mark the end of an era. It hit like a mirror, reflecting everything Ron had fought for, lost, and learned through the years. Both men had lived their dreams under the same blinding spotlight. Both had been loved, doubted, celebrated, and criticized. And both understood the true cost of chasing something bigger than yourself. Rob Reiner had always lived boldly, passionate, outspoken, never afraid to take a stand or stir the pot. He was loud when it mattered, fearless when it counted, and fiercely devoted to his art and his beliefs. But no matter how powerful a person might seem, some battles you just can't control. Watching Rob's journey come to an end hit Ron hard. It forced him to look back on everyone who had shaped him long before fame ever found his name. Because before the fame, before the marriage, before the non-stop attention, there was one bond that built the foundation of who Ron became. The quiet, unbreakable connection with his younger brother, Clint Howard. To the public, Clint was that unforgettable face, the quirky, lovable character actor who popped up in everything from Star Trek to Apollo 13. But to Ron, Clint wasn't just a brother. He was living proof that someone else understood the strange, beautiful, and exhausting experience of growing up under the hot glare of studio lights. The two brothers were practically raised on set, side by side. They'd pass each other in studio hallways lined with heavy cables and buzzing lights, scripts in hand, barely tall enough to reach the makeup chairs. They were kids earning paychecks before they could even spell their own names, reciting lines before they fully knew who they were. In a business that demanded perfection instead of patience, Clint became Ron's anchor, his reminder that he wasn't alone in all that madness. They weren't just brothers, they were co-workers, confidants, survivors of a Hollywood childhood that no outsider could ever truly understand. They'd seen the machine from the inside, the pressure, the grind, the expectations, all before they were old enough to process what it meant. But as adulthood came, life threw challenges neither of them expected. While Ron was rising higher, directing blockbuster after blockbuster and earning a reputation as one of Hollywood's most trusted names, Clint was fighting quieter battles behind the scenes. The pressure, the pace, the endless cycle of rejection and judgment, it all started to wear him down. By the late 1980s, things took a dark turn. Clint's struggles grew heavier, and the spark that once fueled his work began to fade. Ron watched from the sidelines, terrified. The same brother he'd shared sets and dreams with was slipping further away, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. By 1990, the distance between them wasn't just physical, it was emotional too. Hollywood had given them both everything and taken just as much. And while Ron continued to climb, collecting accolades and delivering hit after hit, a piece of him was still stuck in that painful truth that sometimes success demands more than anyone should ever have to give. Even when it's family you're losing in the process. Completely heartbroken and desperate to save his brother, Ron Howard finally hit a breaking point, a moment that would test the strength of their bond and change both of their lives forever. In 1990, he drew a hard line and said the words that tore through the silence, "Get help, or lose me forever." Those weren't words of anger. They came from love so fierce it terrified him. For Ron, it was the hardest thing he'd ever said, but Clint, broken, scared, and standing at the edge, made a choice that would define the rest of his life. He chose recovery over destruction. He chose to fight. That decision didn't just save him, it saved them both. By 2021, the Howard brothers finally opened up about everything in their emotional memoir, The Boys. They pulled back the curtain on their childhood, their fame, and their shared struggles. They credited brutal honesty and unshakable family love for pulling Clint back from the brink. Fans were shocked. The Golden Brothers of Hollywood had been fighting silent battles behind all that success, and it made their story even more powerful. But now, decades later, a new fear has entered Ron's world. One he can't fix, can't outwork, and can't plan his way around. Clint has been facing a serious health battle, one Ron has quietly described as life-altering. He hasn't shared the full details, but his face says it all. The way his shoulders slump, the heaviness in his voice. It's clear this isn't just a setback. It's the kind of illness that shakes the ground under you. It's the kind that changes everything. The rhythm of the days, the tone of the nights. Suddenly, long hours turn into hospital visits, and the quiet moments are filled with worry that doesn't fade. For a man like Ron, someone who built his entire life around control, precision, and direction, this has been a brutal awakening. He's realizing that not every story can be fixed. Not every ending can be rewritten. For once, he can't yell cut. He can't reset the scene. He can't protect Clint the way Clint once protected him when fame felt too heavy, when the cameras burned too bright. For the first time in decades, Ron Howard, the calm, composed Hollywood legend, has admitted something no one ever expected to hear from him. He's scared. Not scared of failure or losing momentum or critics or pressure. He's scared of losing his brother, the one person who's been there since the very first frame of his story. That raw honesty, that helpless kind of love, has reshaped him completely. Even his closest friends say he's changed. The always collected Ron now carries a softness, a vulnerability that never used to be there. And that's why the news of Rob Reiner's death hit him so deeply. It wasn't just about losing a colleague, it was about being reminded how fragile everything truly is. Because while Clint's health was declining, Ron was already living that fear. The realization that no matter how many awards line the shelves, how perfect the film, or how carefully the script is written, some stories can't be controlled. For the man who spent over half a century guiding Hollywood with calm precision, shaping stories that touched millions, this is the one challenge he can't direct, fix, or plan his way out of. No reshoots, no do-overs, just the raw, terrifying truth of love and loss. For the first time in his life, Ron Howard has had to stare his own fragility right in the face, stripped of the cameras, the applause, the comfort of control. And it's changed him completely. In recent interviews, he's admitted that what he's going through with Clint's health has shaken him deeper than anything in his career. Deeper than the disappointment of EDTV, deeper than the relentless pressure of Apollo 13, deeper even than the uphill struggle of Solo, a Star Wars story. Ron Howard described the long, sleepless nights where his mind won't stop replaying his childhood like an old film reel. The small schoolroom at Desilu Studios, the whispered talks between takes, the way Clint's presence made those cold, fluorescent-lit sets feel warm again. What once felt like sweet nostalgia now hits like a punch. Each memory a reminder of everything he stands to lose. He's spoken about a guilt that runs deep. Guilt that while his own career reached unimaginable heights, Clint was silently fighting his own demons in the background. Guilt that he didn't see the cracks forming sooner. Guilt that he couldn't protect his little brother. The same brother who once shielded him from the loneliness of growing up under the blinding glare of studio lights. That kind of regret changes a person, and for Ron, it completely reshaped how he lives now. This new chapter of his life, built on love, fear, and hard-earned wisdom, has forced him to slow everything down. No more endless days on set, no more 3 a.m. call times, no more chasing every project that came knocking. He's turned down major productions, the kind that would have kept him away from home for months, because he finally understands what he can't afford to lose again. Even Imagine Entertainment, the powerhouse studio he co-founded back in 1985, now runs with a bit more distance from him. He's letting others lead, finally giving himself something he once thought impossible. Time. Time to breathe, time to be still, time to just exist without a script dictating his every move. No more 18-hour workdays, no more juggling endless scripts and deadlines. These days, Ron Howard's world revolves around the people who have always mattered most. His family, his brother, and the fragile, beautiful peace that comes with simply being present. He's traded the chaos of Hollywood for something quieter, softer, and far more precious, and it's this grounded, vulnerable version of Ron that makes his reflections on Rob Reiner's legacy hit even harder. One legend quietly honoring another, both men shaped by love, loss, and the heavy cost of caring too deeply. Now Ron's world moves at a slower rhythm, one filled with family dinners, quiet talks, and small, irreplaceable moments that he once let slip through his fingers. The laughter over the dinner table, the long walks with Cheryl, the random phone calls with Clint, these are now the heartbeat of his life. He's made it clear he refuses to lose these moments again. And in one of the most emotional confessions of his entire career, Ron revealed something that stunned everyone, that the silence between projects has opened his eyes in ways no success ever could. For the first time, he said it out loud. He spent decades telling everyone else's stories, but he forgot to tell his own. Now, at 71 years old, with a legacy worth over $200 million and a lifetime of triumphs behind him, Ron Howard has finally reached the truth that so many chase, but few ever find. That all the awards, all the fame, all the box office glory mean absolutely nothing if the people you love start to fade from your world. The man everyone saw as calm, steady, and endlessly kind had been carrying private battles for years, and no one ever saw the cracks. Ron Howard, the picture of composure, had learned to hide his storms behind a quiet smile. But when he finally spoke about it all, the heartbreak in his voice was undeniable. Some wounds, it turns out, never really heal, not even for one of Hollywood's most beloved legends. Just as Ron started finding some peace in this slower, more grounded chapter of his life, the world around him shattered again. Another loss, sudden, shocking, and painfully raw, ripped through the heart of Hollywood. The devastating news of Rob Reiner's passing hit like a thunderstorm no one saw coming. Ron was already standing on emotional thin ice, struggling with his brother Clint's worsening condition, weighed down by guilt, fear, and exhaustion. And then came the headline that froze him in place. Rob Reiner, gone at 78, alongside his wife, Michelle Singer. The tragedy tore through the entertainment world like a scream in silence. Fans, friends, and colleagues were left speechless, unable to process it. But for Ron, it wasn't just another Hollywood headline. It was personal. It was a gut punch straight from life itself. He was already watching someone he loved slowly slip away, and now he was forced to face another devastating goodbye, one that struck right at the heart of everything he and Rob had shared as artists, as men, and as survivors of the same creative grind. As the industry reeled in shock, Ron Howard, the man known for calm under pressure, the eternal voice of reason in chaos, was shaken to his very core. Those closest to him said they'd never seen him like this before. His hands trembled, his words came slow, and his usually steady composure cracked under the weight of it all. Ron had always held a deep respect for Rob, not just as a filmmaker, but as a force. Rob Reiner was bold, fiery, and full of life. His razor-sharp humor and fearless activism stood in perfect contrast to Ron's own quiet, methodical precision. But beneath those differences, they shared something sacred, the same creative fire, the same obsession with telling the truth through story. Both men had grown up in the glare of the camera, molded by Hollywood before they were even old enough to understand what that meant. They'd fought the same battles: studio politics, creative control, endless expectations, always pushing to keep their art real in an industry built on illusion. They were two sides of the same coin, one loud and impassioned, the other patient and deliberate, but both relentlessly driven by the pursuit of authenticity. So when the terrible reports broke, the reality hit Ron like a punch to the chest. The details were brutal, far more than anyone wanted to imagine. The tragedy wasn't peaceful, and it wasn't gentle. Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer had both been found gone under deeply distressing circumstances. Their daughter Rory was the one who discovered them. Police later described the scene as violent and chaotic, the kind of moment that leaves everyone gasping for understanding. It was unthinkable, incomprehensible, the kind of tragedy that leaves even the strongest hearts shaken. And for Ron, already carrying the weight of his brother's illness, it broke something inside him all over again. Friends say the news hit him harder than anyone could have predicted. He'd faced setbacks before, endured crushing pressure, survived career storms. But this was different. The loss was terrifying, the suddenness unbearable. Those close to him said he seemed haunted, walking through days like a man trapped between disbelief and grief. One insider whispered quietly, "Ron just kept saying, 'How could this happen to Rob? How could this happen to Michelle?' His voice would crack mid-sentence, and for a man known for control, that kind of vulnerability said everything. It wasn't just grief, it was heartbreak mixed with disbelief, fear, and empathy. He couldn't stop replaying it in his head, wondering how someone as strong, as alive, as passionate as Rob could be gone in an instant. And maybe that's what scared him most, the reminder that even the brightest lives, even the strongest people, can vanish without warning. For a man who'd spent his entire life mastering chaos through storytelling, this moment destroyed every illusion of control Ron Howard had left. For decades, the camera was his shield, a way to bring order to the mess, to turn heartbreak into art. But when Rob Reiner's tragedy struck, that shield cracked completely. There was no structure, no direction, no fixing it in post. This was real life, raw, brutal, and impossible to rewrite. The loss shook Ron to his core. It tore through every sense of safety he thought he understood. The wave of grief that followed was massive, flooding social media, filling news outlets, and pouring out from fans, filmmakers, and friends around the world. People weren't just mourning a Hollywood icon, they were mourning a man who had made them feel something. Rob's voice, his courage, his humor, his unfiltered truth, they had all left a mark far deeper than any script ever could. But for Ron, that global grief carried an even heavier weight. As he scrolled through endless tributes and memories, he saw his own pain staring right back at him. Every word about Rob's kindness and brilliance reminded him of his own fears, his brother's illness, the ticking clock of time, the quiet ache of everything he couldn't control. Ron had always admired Rob's boldness, that fearless way he jumped into conversations that most directors avoided. Rob never hesitated to speak up, to challenge people, to push the world toward uncomfortable truths. Ron, on the other hand, was the quiet force, the storyteller who preferred to show people their reflection rather than tell them what to see. But in this wave of shared heartbreak, all those differences vanished. There were no styles anymore, no contrasts, no quiet versus loud, only pain, only loss, only the fragile humanity that connected them both. Those close to Ron say he was haunted, unable to shake the thoughts of Rob and Michelle's final moments. Already emotionally raw from Clint's worsening condition, this new tragedy hit him in the most personal way possible. He couldn't stop replaying Rob's final interview, the one that had left fans and friends in tears. In that interview, Rob had spoken with such peace, such calm wisdom about love, family, and legacy. He talked about growing older, about what truly matters once the cameras stop rolling. The irony of it all cut Ron deeply. The serenity in Rob's words standing in painful contrast to the violent, chaotic end that came far too soon. That contradiction between peace and pain, between love and loss, broke something inside Ron all over again. It reminded him that even the strongest souls, the ones who seem invincible, can't outrun fate. In a rare public statement, one shared quietly, stripped of Hollywood polish or PR gloss, Ron finally spoke. His words were simple, heartfelt, and full of unfiltered grief. He didn't talk like a celebrity or a director. He spoke like a man in mourning. He described Rob not as the legend or the filmmaker, but as the human being beneath all that. The husband, the father, the friend, a man who loved hard, fought for what was right, and used his voice to make the world think, even when it meant standing alone. Ron praised Rob's courage, how he used his fame to challenge people, to push boundaries, to ask the questions others were too afraid to ask. And then his voice, usually so calm and measured, broke as he whispered something that silenced everyone listening. This kind of senseless loss, it makes you question everything. It makes you hold your loved ones closer. Those words, quiet, trembling, and painfully real, showed a side of Ron Howard the world rarely gets to see. The man who'd spent a lifetime bringing other people's emotions to the screen was now standing in his own story, unscripted, unfiltered, and completely human. Rob and Michelle were passionate people, devoted to each other and to making a difference, Ron Howard said, his voice trembling with emotion. That's the kind of legacy you never forget. Their loss in such a devastating and senseless way is a wound to us all. He paused, his tone cracking as he added softly, "My heart goes out to their children, especially to Rory, who found them. No one should ever have to face something so heartbreaking." Those quiet words carried the weight of an entire community, an industry united in mourning, two lives that had meant so much to so many. Ron's grief wasn't loud or performative. It was steady, genuine, and full of sorrow that everyone could feel. In that moment, Hollywood's usual glamour fell away, leaving only pain, memory, and respect. Ron went on to share something deeply personal, a reflection that revealed just how intertwined his and Rob Reiner's lives had truly been. "We grow up together in this business," he said softly. "Some of us from the time we're kids. We become witnesses to each other's stories, the highs, the lows, the moments no one else ever sees." He took a breath, his eyes glistening. When something like this happens, it stops you. It forces you to really see how fragile it all is, how unpredictable life can be, how easily everything can change in a single moment. Those words hit especially hard, because Ron wasn't just mourning Rob. He was already living through his own private storm. With his brother Clint's health declining, every new tragedy echoed like a cruel reminder of time slipping away. The loss of Rob and Michelle felt like a reflection of everything he feared most. That no matter how much you plan, how carefully you try to hold things together, life always finds a way to remind you who's really in charge. For Ron, this tragedy didn't just break his heart, it deepened it. It stripped away the last bits of illusion and left him with raw truth. It strengthened every promise he'd made to himself, to slow down, to stay close, to never trade moments with loved ones for anything the world could offer. He'd spent decades telling everyone else's stories, stories of courage, of love, of redemption, while quietly silencing his own. But now, standing in the wreckage of loss, he understood more clearly than ever what truly mattered. Rob Reiner's heartbreaking end, a man who lived boldly, loved fiercely, and created endlessly, became more than just a loss for Ron Howard. It was a mirror, a warning, and a lesson all wrapped in one. It forced him and everyone watching to confront that harsh Hollywood truth. No matter how bright the lights shine, they don't last forever. The real legacy isn't fame or awards or headlines. It's what happens off camera. It's in the time we spend, the people we hold close, and the love we refuse to take for granted. In the weeks that followed, as the world tried to process Rob Reiner's tragic passing, something subtle, almost invisible, began to stir around Ron. It wasn't scandal or anger, not even blame. It was tension, that strange, heavy kind that only comes from unfinished history. Because while Ron and Rob's friendship had always seemed built on respect, there was more beneath the surface, layers outsiders never fully saw. Behind the public admiration, The interviews full of praise, and the awards night smiles, there was something else simmering quietly between them. They had shared admiration, yes, but also rivalry. Quiet, complicated, and sometimes sharp enough to sting. Both had risen from child actors to Hollywood titans. Both had conquered directing in their own way. But where Ron was careful, precise, and diplomatic, Rob was fiery, vocal, and unfiltered. They represented two opposing forces, order and chaos, both vital, both brilliant, both battling for the same truth. That unspoken competition had followed them for decades, sometimes playful, sometimes pointed. But beneath it all, there had always been respect. And now, with Rob gone, that tension felt heavier than ever, like a ghost hovering between grief and guilt. Ron couldn't help but wonder if there was more he should have said or done. Rob Reiner and Ron Howard had always moved through Hollywood like two parallel forces, orbiting the same universe, each building his own empire brick by brick. Both were born into the business. Both were storytellers raised under the glare of studio lights, and both understood, better than anyone, the heavy price of greatness. Yet their approaches couldn't have been more different. Rob Reiner was the storm, loud, fearless, and unfiltered. He wasn't afraid to rattle cages, challenge authority, or use his voice to shake the walls of the system itself. He believed that change didn't come from playing nice. It came from standing up, speaking out, and making people uncomfortable until they listened. Ron Howard, on the other hand, was the calm in that storm. Careful, composed, and strategic, he believed in quiet precision, in letting the work speak for itself. While Rob would charge in head first, Ron would hang back, study the field, and move with subtle power. Two different philosophies, one explosive, one methodical, but both chasing the same truth through film. And though they respected each other deeply, that contrast sometimes created more friction than anyone on the outside ever realized. There were whispers around the industry, quiet ones, but persistent, that the two had often competed for the same high-profile projects. Scripts passed quietly between studios, producers torn between Reiner's fire and Howard's finesse. It was never ugly, never public, never petty, but it was real. The kind of rivalry built not on hatred, but on admiration and pride. They were like two planets locked in the same orbit, drawn together by mutual respect, yet constantly pushed apart by their own intensity. Now, in the wake of Rob's tragic passing, that tension has taken on a haunting weight. People close to Ron say he's been replaying old moments in his head. Conversations he never finished, messages he never sent, calls he thought he'd make someday but never did. Industry insiders recall seeing them together at award shows and charity galas, exchanging warm but measured smiles, their friendship always framed by a layer of polite distance. They admired each other, one longtime friend revealed, but they challenged each other too, maybe more than either of them ever wanted to admit. And now, with Rob gone, Ron is left carrying that quiet ache, the guilt of a friendship that was never fully resolved, the sorrow of a rivalry that never found closure. In one recent interview, when a journalist asked Ron about Rob, he paused for what felt like forever. His expression softened, his voice dropping low. "We didn't always see eye to eye, but he made me better. Maybe I just never told him that." That single line, simple, raw, and full of emotion, told the whole story. Two men who built their legacies side by side, forever linked by mutual respect, creative tension, and that haunting what if that comes when it's suddenly too late to say the things that matter most. As the weeks turned into months, that unspoken connection between Rob Reiner's enduring legacy and Ron Howard's quiet reflection only grew deeper. Hollywood was still in mourning, but behind the candlelight vigils, the award show dedications, and the glowing tributes, something else was quietly stirring. An unraveling of untold truths between two men who had helped shape an entire generation of storytelling. Insiders began revisiting old interviews, old footage, old moments that suddenly carried a different weight in hindsight. There had always been something electric between them. Not hostility, not rivalry in the ugly sense, but that kind of creative charge that happens when two perfectionists recognize pieces of themselves in each other. Rob's fiery intensity often pushed Ron to take bigger risks, to break away from the safe route and chase something raw and daring. And at the same time, Ron's patience, structure, and quiet discipline had a grounding effect on Rob, forcing him to slow down, think deeper, and dig into his emotional core before shouting his truth to the world. They were never enemies, They were mirrors, each one reflecting the pieces of the other that they couldn't face within themselves. In public, Ron Howard and Rob Reiner smiled, praised each other, and posed for photos. But behind that surface, there was something far deeper, more human, and far more complicated. When Ron finally started opening up about that dynamic, his words hit harder than anyone expected. "Rob and I didn't compete the way people think," he said quietly, his voice careful but heavy with truth. "It wasn't about box office numbers or awards. It was about something else, about legacy, about meaning." He paused, eyes flicking down for a moment as if he were still searching for the right words. "We pushed each other without even realizing it," he continued softly. "I think we both wanted to outdo the silence between us." That single line, "outdo the silence between us," rippled through Hollywood like an emotional aftershock. It was a rare, vulnerable confession from a man known for composure, an admission that there had always been more beneath those polite handshakes and red carpet smiles. People who'd worked around them started to remember things, tiny details that suddenly carried weight, stories of creative meetings that ended with quiet disagreements, of studio pitch sessions where both men unknowingly circled the same script, of a phone call that went unanswered after a misunderstood comment. Small, forgettable moments at the time, but now, looking back, they pulsed with unspoken regret. Close friends say Ron has been digging through old photos and letters lately, even pulling out DVDs of Stand By Me and A Few Good Men. He used to praise those films publicly, always respectful of Rob's genius, but now, when he re-watched them, it wasn't admiration he felt. It was reflection. It was the realization that they had both been chasing the same truth, just in different ways. When a journalist recently asked Ron what he would say to Rob if he had one more chance to speak to him, the room went silent. Ron looked down for a long moment before saying softly, "I'd tell him we were both wrong. It was never a competition. We were just trying to say the same thing, only in two different languages." That line broke people. It wasn't just emotional, it was revelation. Because maybe, beneath all the rivalry and all the respect, what truly connected Ron Howard and Rob Reiner wasn't competition at all. It was the shared ache of two storytellers trying to make sense of the same fragile, unpredictable world. By early 2026, the headlines about Rob Reiner's passing had started to fade. The social media posts had slowed, the tributes had been said, and Hollywood had moved on. But Ron hadn't. Not even close. The loss lingered with him like an echo that refused to fade. It crept into his thoughts during interviews, followed him onto sets, haunted the quiet moments when the cameras stopped rolling and the applause went silent. The world saw closure, but Ron felt an open wound. Because for him, this wasn't just about grief. It was about everything left unsaid. It was about two men who once walked shoulder to shoulder through Hollywood's blinding light, and how one of them disappeared before the other ever found the right words. Ron found himself revisiting their last real conversation, years before Rob's death, at a charity event in Beverly Hills. The room had been alive with chatter, cameras flashing, champagne flowing, the kind of scene both men had learned to endure rather than enjoy. But amid all that noise, their moment was strangely calm, almost still. He could remember the way Rob leaned in mid-conversation, cracking a small grin, always with that spark in his eyes. Ron remembered answering politely, holding that same respectful distance he always did. But now, in hindsight, that memory burned, because that was the last time they spoke with any real honesty, and he hadn't known it was goodbye. Rob had laughed that night and said with his trademark smirk, "You know, Ronnie, we're both control freaks pretending we're easygoing guys." Ron had smiled, playing it off like a joke, but deep down, those words hit him harder than he wanted to admit. That was classic Rob, direct, insightful, and just a little too honest. He never forgot it. And now, with Rob gone, that one line keeps echoing in Ron's mind, like a haunting refrain he can't silence. Friends close to him say Ron has been quietly working on something new. But this time, it's not a blockbuster, not a studio-backed epic, not even something meant for the spotlight. It's personal, a script that feels more like a confession than a production. "It's not exactly about Rob," one insider explained, "but you can feel him in every line. It's like Ron's finally writing the conversation they never got to finish." Those who've seen early drafts say it's one of the most emotional pieces Ron has ever created. Part tribute, part reflection, part farewell. The story follows two filmmakers who spend their lives trying to outdo each other. only to realize too late that they were both chasing the same truth all along. It's raw, honest, and full of the kind of emotion that can only come from real loss. One early reader said, "It's Ron's heart on the page. No filters, no polish, just truth." When asked recently if the project was connected to Rob Reiner, Ron gave that small, knowing smile and said softly, "Let's just say it's about what happens when you lose the person who understood you the most, even when you didn't understand each other." And just like that, everyone understood. Ron wasn't running from the tension anymore. He was turning it into art. That's where the story lands, not with some perfect Hollywood ending, but with quiet truth. Two men who spent their lives telling the world's stories, all while trying to make sense of their own. Ron Howard and Rob Reiner, two names forever stamped into Hollywood's golden era. Each one left a mark you can't erase. One, the careful craftsman who built emotion out of precision and empathy. The other, the bold visionary who used his voice to challenge the world, to think, to feel, to speak up. Different paths, different methods, but the same fire burning at their core, that relentless need to make meaning out of the chaos of life. Now, in the wake of Rob's loss, Ron stands not as a rival or a peer, but as a man transformed, softer, more reflective. Finally at peace with the truth that legacy isn't about perfection, it's about connection. His story, Rob's story, even Clint's story, they're all threads of the same human fabric. A reminder that behind the cameras, the headlines, and the awards, there are real people living real lives, full of love, mistakes, grief, and resilience. And maybe that's what makes it all so powerful, because at the end of every film, every career, every friendship, there's always that one truth that never changes. We only get so much time, and it's up to us to make it count. So now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Ron and Rob's quiet rivalry was a curse or a hidden gift? Did it push them to greatness or keep them from finding peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what you think about this untold bond between Ron Howard and Rob Reiner. Did their story hit you the way it hit me? And hey, if you felt this one, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the untold sides of Hollywood's biggest legends. Every click, every share helps keep these real, emotional stories alive. The ones that don't end when the credits roll. Because sometimes, the story doesn't end at the end. Sometimes, that's just when it finally starts to make sense.